Hey, how's it going, Warner?
Matthew, good seeing you again.
Yeah, it's always good
Always a
seeing you.
pleasure.
You got that
Yeah,
you got that beautiful half it looks like it's carpet or is that foam behind you? Oh yeah, it's nice soft foam.
yeah, it's kind of a bit of a sound booth, but we're moving in the next 2 months, well, next month and a half.
Oh,
So
right
kind of
on.
half the stuff is here, half the stuff is being moved over. So
That makes sense because you got
and
it on one wall, not on the other.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's in between moves. So can't wait to get settled in the new offices and in the new studio. So
Mm,
yeah. Yeah, no, it's been an interesting week. I mean, you and I just joked about Signal, and that's definitely not secrets that were shared.
definitely not. No,
Uh,
bro. Definitely not. No.
no, no, not at all. But I mean, again, let's get a little bit closer to what we talk about. And one of the things that you've mentioned to me earlier, where we had good response from our conversations about VC venture capital. People found it interesting, but at the end of it, they still said to you, "But what's VC?
Hmm.
What is venture capital?" So people understand part of it, but they don't understand all of it. So that's kind of what I want to start with and have a few questions for you based on your
Ooh.
experiences with Black Anvil, Foodbite, some other startups that you've been involved with and that you know. Uh, your perspective is interesting because it kind of bridge the American experience and the Canadian experience.
American experience is just wild, wild west. That's the best way to describe it.
Exactly. And by the way, I read a very interesting article this morning. They actually said that for startups, European startups, a European listing, if you get to a European listing level, it's actually better to start with a listing in Europe and then move to the States versus pursuing a listing in the States and skipping a European listing. And there was some very specific financial analysis behind it and valuations and et cetera, et cetera. But in any case, so you straddle both sides of the border. Uh, so, your perspective is unique. Um, but, when people talk to me or I meet founders or people that's looking for funding for investment money, because you're in the industry and I talk to so many of them, you kind of have a BS radar, that's kind of that's been finely attuned to pick up things very, very, very quickly. And you also pick up stuff that you really want to know a little bit more about very, very early on in any of these conversations. And and I want to test you around some of these because, as an example, uh, you can't. I know so many founders that if you start talking to them about a strategy, they don't even have a strategic document. They don't need it.
That's
Do
most
they
of
have a
us.
strategic? Yeah. Do they have a strategic plan? Most of them don't.
Make
You know.
money.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all about build it fast, fix it, which is kind of the default setting, which is not right either. So the first thing that I always want to see is I just want to see some logic behind their idea. Have they thought about how they're actually going to make the real, assuming it is an idea with legs? And that for me is where the strategy question comes in. In other words, are they able to very early on connect the problem, the business model or model that they think might work, and the market? Very few of them can provide the kind of basic insight that I would like to see. So my question is, am I expecting too much to ask them to kind of have a foundational understanding of, you know, this is a problem, this is the customer, this is the value proposition, this is how I think it's going to work. Uh, am I wrong in expecting that early on, or is that kind of something that needs to be there?
When I was in grade primary, we used to take our hand and we used to put it on a piece of paper. We used to take crayons
Yes,
and just like draw around it, and we'd be like, "This is a chicken, this is a turkey," and then we'd
yes.
like draw like things and be like, "This is the color red," and I would like make little macaroni pictures and I would like bring it home to my parents and it'd be like, "I love you, mom and dad," and I'd have like a picture and it would just say like mom and dad on it. And in grade like grade three is like when I started learning how to like multiply numbers together. Grade
Yep.
two was like, simple bedmas stuff, but like grade three and grade four is like multiplying and dividing numbers
Mhm.
and teaching me like the basic arithmetic. And that's like a 4 year difference between those two, right? And like when you're
Yep.
dealing with founders, it's important to ask them like how far. It's like a secret little code we do with each other is we ask each other like how many
Yes.
years have you been doing this? Because that lets me know
Interesting.
at like
Yep.
what kind of mental development you're into as a founder. If you're like, oh, I've been doing this for 1 year. Oh, okay. Like, have you
Yes.
done any startups
Yes.
before? Have you worked in any startups? No. So like what? And like when people, I met like a founder that was that way yesterday, and he's
Hmm.
never worked in a startup before in his life. He's like 41 years old, first year of his startup. He's got some revenue under his belt. Immediately wants venture capital. He's like, now's the time. Now's the time.
Big flag. Big
Yeah.
flag. Yep.
So I'm like, that's why I was asking him, like, how many years you've been doing this? Because then immediately I go to, okay, so this is probably your experience knowing like how we as startups function and like what we do and how we think and how we behave. So why do you need the money? I want the money
Mhm.
so I can build a sales team. Okay, so
Second flag.
yeah,
Yep.
who is selling the product right now? I am. Okay, and do you have sales experience? Yes. Do you have sales experience selling this thing?
Mm.
No, but I am learning. No, okay, so that's something. Do you have any experience marketing? No. Okay, so who was
Yep.
your first customer? And this is basically like somebody he knew. So like, hey, good job. You like did your first sale, and that's good. But like that's going to be a crawl upwards, and now it becomes
Hmm.
like, how do you build out some kind of funnel where you can bring people into your ecosystem and enrich
Sure.
them and get them excited about what you're working on? I don't know. I
Sure.
haven't figured it out, but like that person has like an MBA, and like it's not like an insane amount of red flags, but there are like concerning things there for sure. But like that's what I mean is like when I talk with other founders, there's things I'm looking to hear, like little pickups.
Correct.
And this is
Correct.
just things that like I've learned over the years from talking to hundreds of founders across North America about like where are you at, what kind of things are you working on, what problems are
Yep.
you addressing, how do you overcome these problems, and then
Learn the kind of questions
I
you need to ask. Yeah.
yeah, and like I do these kind of, I mean, like suffer from the same problems myself. So it's just how good are you at solving these problems and how fast can you overcome them determines the quality of the entrepreneur. But still, it should be, gate kept by roughly the amount of years that you're into this, right?
Well, I like your answer because it kind of supports my view and my experience is that they definitely should have some insight or at least be able to talk intelligently about at least some strategic concepts, like the problem they're trying to solve, the kind of model that this fits into or doesn't fit into, the kind of market that it's going to be launched in. And what you've just told me is that, and I agree with this, is that unless they have done the effort of talking to startup founders, other founders, and try and learn from them and get insight from them, they should rather just hold back to talk to any potential investors or participate in any pitch because it'll be completely transparent that they haven't done it. So and the one thing that I like about your style of conversations is that, and you and I both know not everybody's comfortable with it, but you ask challenging questions.
Yes.
Yes. You also sometimes ask confrontational questions.
Oh,
Am
that
I
I do.
right?
Yeah, obtrusive,
Yes.
confrontational questions for sure.
Why do you do that with founders? What are you expecting to hear back and see back?
I'm
when
expecting.
you confront them, when you challenge them?
I don't. There's things I don't want to see. Like immediately, if I'm dealing with founders and they say like, "Hey, I'm looking for investors," and I'm like, "Oh, why are you looking for investment?" They're like, "Well, I need money." Okay, so what is your value prop to the investors?
Yes,
And they go,
yes,
well, like I'm developing, aren't I? And I just kind of ask like really annoying, intrusive questions and just kind of like poke around, be like, have you raised capital before?
yep,
What's your
yep,
round structure? Like
yes.
questions like that. And if they get frustrated very easily and they're just like, oh, you don't like, you're just asking really annoying questions. I'm just looking for somebody that can help me find investors. I just kind of unplug from this. I find like an excuse to unplug from the situation. And I say like, hey, like, well, good luck. Wish you the best of luck.
But that's also your first test of the founder's mindset,
Yep.
how they respond. And it's not necessary that they need to know all the answers, it's how they respond to those questions and challenging questions. Correct.
Yeah, because like I want if people put like their ego out front, and I'm guilty of doing this when
Hmm.
I was like a very first like when my very first startup, I was like, God, why can't people understand that I want to shoot blueberries with lasers? It's the coolest
And
thing
just
ever.
give me the money.
Yes,
That's
give
all
me
I
the money.
need.
Give me the money. Yeah,
Yes,
just but like
yes.
that's what I mean is like that doesn't work. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about your problem.
Mm.
Nobody cares about what you're working on or why you think it's
No, they
cool.
don't.
They only
Yeah,
care about
no,
their
they don't.
problems and how you can work into that to solve their problems. And if you're not there to do that, then bugger off, right?
So we agree that when you start talking to founders the first time, or when founders starts preparing to get financing, uh, there needs to be a very deliberate effort to kind of get intentional about what they want to do. Intentional about the business that they plan to design uh, uh, with certain knowledge or insight that we want to see from the first conversation onwards. Correct.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now the next thing is, and I had a conversation about an hour ago with an angel investor group, which is slightly different
Ooh.
than a venture capital one. And angel investor group is probably, if you can access one, is probably one of the friendlier ways of getting your startup going. I mean, we can talk about that a little bit later.
Oh,
But
they're like pretty much all entrepreneurs that have done this kind of stuff before. So they can kind of get like what a working business is, right?
so, youngest founder, and they've got 5 companies in their portfolio, not not large, but youngest founder, 33 years old. So they've been around the block.
Yep.
They've got a few t-shirts, they've got a few scars, kind of thing. But what the general partner was just telling me, managing director was just telling me, was that expressing to the group actually was that the thing that still frustrates him is that even people at that level, their lack of foundational lack of foundational financial knowledge, not knowledge, language. They just not
I'm
attuned.
guilty of that.
Yeah. Um, you- why do you say you're guilty of that? Because
Well,
I
like
actually, I actually see you very well informed with that versus other founders.
I know what a pro forma statement is. So like
Okay, okay, that's a start.
yeah, but like outside of that, like I understand how to run a budget, but like people go like, "Oh, Matt, you must be like really well educated on this," and I'm like, "Well, just don't tack up a lot of expenses. Like, develop code off
Yep,
your couch, buy
yep,
pizza, and like feed yourself with pizza and craft dinner." Like I'm guilty of going into a conversation. I think it was at Volta where we used to have like these community like get-togethers where like all of us would
yep.
sit down and just have like a discussion amongst each other as founders, and Volta would like oversee the whole thing.
Mm.
And I would make a joke every now and then saying like, "Hey, I got a new sale today," and everybody's like, "Oh, good job, man, good job." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get myself some craft dinner money," and everybody would laugh, and I'd be like, "What's funny? What's so funny?"
No, just the way you describe it. Yep, I've done a sale. Yay! That's what's funny. I would never clap in that situation when somebody's got a sale. Sorry,
Yep.
I'm just being blunt.
But we're
My
founders. We need the self help. Okay.
My question would be yes, and yeah, sorry, Matthew, but I mean back to the financial language bit thing, and I'm very glad you understand the former statement, but I actually know you know more than that. Um, but back to that. So so things that concerns me when I talk to founders is that when they think me explaining having a starter budget and an operational budget is interesting,
Mhm.
that they haven't even thought about the difference between a starter budget and operational budget. That's the second thing that concerns me is that if I take them through a very basic Excel sheet, that the first thing they ask me is, can I have it? Now that scares the hell out of me as well. Okay, because it is at such a simplistic level, just to support a conversation that I personally think it will be embarrassing for them to use that anywhere else.
It is electronic napkin math. That's what it is.
I love that. I'm going to use that with. I'm definitely going to use that in a few other conversations. But and you and I have spoken about this, and again, I did some reading about this. You and I spoke about it. I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. That ability of a startup to create value, to create revenues, to create money. And for me, besides being able to, before we get even to the investing terminologies and the financing terminologies, let's just keep it to business financial terminologies. So for me, there's, of course, you need to know a budget. Telling somebody I need $150,000 and not being able to substantiate that clearly is going to be a problem. Telling somebody you need $150,000 with $120,000 going to sales isn't a good strategy either, like you've just mentioned earlier. But do you think, or when, as an experienced founder, when would you like to see them expressing insight or an awareness of the importance of the relationship between customer acquisition cost and lifetime value? When do you
Ah,
want to see them beginning to, that wheel starts turning? Because that's the engine that drives money. When do you want to see that?
okay. So,
A bit of
geez.
a curveball.
Yeah, that there is a time for this for startups. This is like you should understand what these are, not necessarily have the ability to fundamentally track those two
Of
values,
course not.
but
Yep.
at least understand what they are and put some effort into figuring out how you're going to track them before you talk to angels, because angels are going to be
Exactly.
the group that's going to be looking at your business model, and they're going to be
Yes.
saying like, this sucks and I hate it and I don't want to invest. Or they're going to look at it and say, okay, there's meaning, like there's some value there, like could you just make the number
Correct.
like a little bit more traction maybe. Or they're
Yes.
going to say, wow,
Correct.
this is the best thing ever, yeah, I can't wait to give you some money. But you should never go to a VC and sit there and say like, yeah, like we're thinking about tracking these numbers soon. We think that like we're getting to the maturity of getting able to track our cost
Mhm.
of acquiring a customer. They're going to look at you and say, well, then what do you think I am? Like, what do you think I do? I am literally just like most VCs, and this is rude. And if you're a VC out there and you're offended, you want to like write me an angry thing, just drop me a little message on LinkedIn. You can find me at Matt Winchester. I think that like VCs are just like human algorithms that are like pattern matching algorithms that dispense cash depending on the pattern that they see between founder, team, business model,
So
market.
that is unfortunately true.
No. You can also find Werner at his handle on LinkedIn to
Yes,
send him
please
angry messages.
pull me into this because it is true. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem defending that.
Okay. So, like, if you're going to track those things, you're going to have to understand them and put them in a mathematical formula and defend the arguments that you make
Yes.
in a
That's
debate
exactly
with the
it.
VC, or they're going to waste a lot of your time and then just go, well, this is really cool. I'm a little bit busy now. Like, can we just like revisit this in 3 months? Like, how about in 3 months we just have another follow up call and see where you're at? And that's like what VCs are going to do. The best way that I think you can get VCs on your side is tell them what you're working on, and their immediate follow-up is going to be like, this is great, can we have like a follow-on discussion next week? And you just
Yes,
go, we can, but I'm a little bit busy. How about I add you to my newsletter? And that just has like some of my numbers come out, and then that'll keep you up to date. And I have like a VC newsletter for investors like yourself. They're gonna be like, yes, put me on that,
that
please.
works.
Yeah, because I
Absolutely.
just have to feed them like take like a cookie and just like crumple off little bits, which are numbers, and just feed them
Yes.
regularly to VCs to make them happy. I think
Yep.
is the important piece there. To that, they're going to be looking at. I was talking to Brandy and Craig yesterday about this. Like one of the big numbers is, and VCs are changing. Like what they're looking for is
Yeah,
always
they are.
becoming more
Yeah, of course they
competitive.
do. Yeah, yeah, of course they do.
This was like 5 years ago. Like a lot of VCs I talked to no longer wanted like the 12-month model. So like normally with the 12-month model is, I'm a startup, I'm selling you a subscription.
Correct.
There's a cost to acquiring a customer. I show you what the
Yes.
CAC is, the average customer lifetime value, and the ratio looks good. It's like higher than a 3. But then I'm looking at you saying, hey, it's going to take me like 12, like inside of 12 months for me to get my cost back based off of me selling them a
Yes.
subscription.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand
So
that.
that was the old model. The new model is like best of 3, which is I'm selling you 2 or 3 things at the same time. I'm selling you consulting, I'm selling you hardware, and I'm selling you a subscription. And I'm probably
Yep.
going to be packaging them in together.
Yep.
And then that's going to, instead of doing a 12-month return, they want to see an instant, like 1 week return or like instant return. And the ratio should be above a 7. So like whatever your cost to acquire, the return is 7 above that. And the average customer lifetime value should be in the 5 digits if you're a B2B.
So I follow all of this now, but as a first-time founder, that to me sounds that has definitely moved the goalposts.
Yep.
It just took it a few steps up.
Yep.
Otherwise, okay. Otherwise, you're just not going to get to that level that they want to see. Correct?
Yep. That's correct.
Okay. Interesting. Yes, because the dynamic between those elements, as you say, at least you want them to understand it. They don't have to know it. It's too early on. How they're going to get back that cost of acquisition, customer acquisition cost, how quick, customer lifetime value. Yep, I like that. Do you agree? Because I read it this morning on a Substack newsletter and I thought, yeah, I'm going to ask Matthew because I'm not sure I agree. Somebody was saying, and it comes back to to just what you and I talked now about the CAC and the customer lifetime value. He was just saying that you should launch a new project feature every week.
Oh, no.
Please. And I'm just thinking like, listen here, my friend, this is clickbait.
Yeah.
No. And I was thinking, what am I missing? Because that to me sounds the worst possible thing you want to do.
Like you're gonna take your founders and you like if you're a VC, just
So
to be
talk
clear.
about the focus. Talk
Yeah.
about the focus that you want to see.
Yeah. So like there was, I don't want to mention their name, but there was a traceability startup that invited me into to their office, and I got to go around and meet like the founders, and we got to talk about like whether or not FoodBite could source our technology to them, or whether or not there was a back and forth. One of the very first things that happened after I met the founders is we had a quick discussion, and they were like, "That's cool that all your founders are still on your team, because all of our founders are still on our team, and we're like
Yep.
8 years old." And my immediate reaction was like, oh, of course all the founders are going to be on the original team. Like, no, it's not. That's not the case. It's founders. Eventually they're going to burn out. They're going to have some
Yes, they
kind of
do.
argument. They're going to reach the end of the
Yes,
rope
they
where
do.
people look at
Yes,
them
they
and
do.
say, I don't think you should be on this team anymore. Or
Yep.
they're just gonna find something else, right? So like you want those founders to stay focused, because those are the original people with the original
Yes.
focus and the culture and the
Yes.
identity of what you're creating. And then after they leave, it's just whatever private equity firm or whatever team wants to do right now to implement a solution to this. So it's going to change a lot, but you want that team, whoever's running the startup, to be laser focused on where the value is and how they've established that is like the test case on like how they've established where the value is. There's some examples like you can do, like you can take your customers and break it into like do you need, like, how important is this thing? How do you need it now? Do you need it
Mm,
later?
mm,
What's the
mm.
costing, in the marketplace? There's all kinds of different ways that we can poke and prod around as founders to figure out where we need to put our nose and where we need to put our focus. But if you're sitting there saying, like, we need a new feature every week, what are you doing? Like,
Well,
ugh.
that was my immediate reaction. And this guy's got a few 100,000 followers. And I
No.
was just thinking, no, this is the worst. It's kind of similar to some of the advice you read on LinkedIn and some other platforms where you just think, no, that's not true. It's the worst advice possible. But in any case, it was so that brings me to another point. Now, again, you and I spoke about this. Is that so we both want to see a kind of strategic logic when you talk to first-time founders. It's expected with experienced founders, but first-time founders needs to go that little bit of a take that step to learn more before they start asking for investment. Uh, we both agree that it's not knowing the numbers, it's understanding the relationship between the numbers. And that's one of my gripes, because the thing that I dislike is what if there's a disconnect between what they say they're going to do and their numbers, or vice versa.
Mhm.
And that just completely changes how you look at the startup, the risk associated with the startup, the ability to deliver returns, build something of value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then the third thing that I always want to see is, and again, I might be pushing it a little bit here, but one thing that I don't want to see from founders anymore is sitting in front of me and getting excited about the customer discovery process, but they haven't done anything yet. I'm not interested in the customer discovery process. If I hear about it again, I'm going to just fall over and faint. What I want to see is I want some initial insight, and I want to see some credible insight. And I want to see, maybe even if you belong to a micro community or a Reddit or whatever, that you at least have some followers. That's what I would like to see. I read something, and no, I'm not going to write a book, but I saw something interesting a few years ago where somebody wanted to publish a book, and they actually spoke to an editor. And one of the questions were, well, do you have a newsletter? Yes, I do. How many followers do you have? 16,000. Well, we start talking to people once we're interested to publish a book once you have more than 20,000 followers. Bang, that's the line, which was very interesting to me, because it just shows there's some traction, there's some credibility, there's some insight. You've been able to build this up. Now, when it comes to this behavioral insight, little bit, um, product, customer, uh, technology, you and I spoke about it. The person that kind of brings that all together is what is known in the industry as a product manager, correct?
Yep.
Or is that also the role of the founder?
Um,
Tricky question.
it's the product manager role for sure. Founders can wear many hats,
Yes.
and we can even wear the same hat sometimes, which is super
Well,
awkward.
yes. Okay. So as a founder, that's one of the hats that you need to wear very early on. Correct.
Yep.
How would you look at a co-founder or somebody to do this product management function for you? What would you like to see them bring to the table?
I need to see it so that they understand, from a point of view of what the product we're trying to make is.
Just
If
stop right there. Just sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there. Just explain, because we understand what product means, but explain to folks, what do you mean by product? Because it's a bit of a different concept than
true,
just this.
true. So if I'm creating like a software product, what I mean by that
Hmm.
is I can like my laptop is full of rinky-dink little chunks of code in the form of scripts that I can just execute, and it goes and does a thing. That's not really a product. That's just like an
Exactly.
automation task that I've set up that
Hmm.
executes on a bunch of commands that I've set. a product is like something that I can like put out there and people can just go to a website and like use it. Or if it's just like an embedded system, like something you can use on your watch or your phone, like an app, for example, on your phone as a product.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay. Got
I
it.
want somebody to understand, if I bring them on, that has experience to compartmentalize things into a product and actually get it running. So it can be distributed, it can be put on different devices, it can be launched, we can track it, we can see how users interact with it. Those are the key things that I could be looking for. As much as people say like, yeah, but they have to be like super good at coding. Yes.
Is that true?
Not really. They don't have to be like super good at coding. They just have to be able to like code things and then be able to sit back and have a discussion with me, even if that's internal with myself as a monologue, because I'm the guy doing it, as to is this
I like
working or
that. I
not?
like that. Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
I've done things where what's a so like in Food Bite, like one of the pieces of code that I worked on, this is like it's like a weird story. Is the Stripe payment system. So like we use Stripe to like handle payments at Food
Sure.
Bite, and
A
when I
good
work,
case study, by the way. Yep.
yeah. So like I didn't know anything about finances or finance law before opening up this thing, right?
Yep.
And I was like, oh, it's just this thing I installed on the website and just like open it up because it's like basically a software development kit and a freeform package that you can open up. And then
Yep.
it's like, hey, you have to implement all these different chunks of code, all these different functions to handle all of these edge cases. And I was like, oh, like what are they? And it's like all different types of like finance fraud because they're checking like all kinds of different things that you could be doing. Like, is it a stolen credit card? Is it like a card that's been reported as stolen? Is it like all these different things? And you have to like,
Yes.
and you have to be able to handle all of these edge cases, or else you just get like an error and you can't like explain it back to the user. So
Yes.
unless you just want the whole thing to just error and crash, you have to be able to intelligently handle these errors and be able to project it back. And you probably don't want to tell somebody, hey, this is a stolen credit card. You probably want to be able to say like, hey, like
Yes.
the credit card doesn't appear to be working. Try again.
Yep.
So like that's what I mean is being able to write that code and then say this is working, and then say okay, but these parts aren't. Fix them, and then just go through a process intelligently through that. And like you go like, oh well, like everybody that's got a computer science background knows how to do that.
And
Like we mostly just have
no,
like a
Matthew,
problem
that's the
solving
same.
skills.
Yeah, well, that's the same as saying that every CPA knows how to do financial modeling. It's just not true.
And what I mean by that is like they're having the mentality to understand like this thing over here is working and I should keep doing it because it's working towards the solution I want, versus this thing I'm trying to implement is not working, drop it, find another solution. That's what I mean is like in those kind of situations, understanding the difference between the two and just being able to put up your hands and say nope, it's not going to work.
So, what does funders want to see? Do they want, and I'm not going to talk about MVP
Funders
and
or
prototype,
founders?
no, funders,
Funders.
investors.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, so, well, I mean, the founder is a very large part in their investment decision. So it's kind of related. But, some folks like to see something work perfectly. Some folks is just comfortable with it doing its job. What is the magic spot there?
It depends on the funder, because if you're going to somebody like my interactions with government folks, if you're going for like early stage like incubator things,
Mhm.
is does this make sense? Do you have like some kind of early stage support to it? And are people
Yes.
kind of doing this? Because if it's just like it's kind of like vibes, like vibe
Mm.
checking, and that's all it is at the start. If you're going to angels, or you want to see traction in the form of revenue, and they want to see that
Yes.
you're not churning all of your customers as they come and sign up. Because if you're having, like, if you're say, hey, like I signed on 5 new customers this quarter, and they're like, great. How's it going? And it's like terrible. Like 4 of them left within the first month. Then that's not really something that they can put their money into, because your average customer lifetime value is killed down to basically probably what you're doing with the monthly subscription, maybe a little bit of consulting. So it's just
Yep.
not really worth it, right? You're not going to be able
Yep.
to build your gold pile off of that. If you're going to a VC, again, like VCs, as the algorithms that they are, I'm pretty sure like you could be weaving baskets. You could have an Etsy store where you weave baskets, and if you have a large enough following and show them numbers that make sense, they'd be like, yeah, okay, sure.
Uh, well, again, and I'm not going to mention examples, but you're 100% correct. One example I can mention, Mr. Warren Buffett, you would know him.
Hmm.
A very well-known, sophisticated investor. One of his largest holdings used to be a gift packaging company
Yep.
because it made money,
Yep.
very good money. So your example about baskets being weaved and things like that, if it makes money, you've got their attention. But Matthew, it's not just about making money. It's the ability to talk that language, to understand something that can make money and to build something that can make money. Now, that
So
brings me
I
again,
just want to jump in there and just say
please.
something to be clear. Food Bite, like the very first version of Food Bite, was it looked stupid. Like it looked so bad that I was ashamed of it. And then the second version of
I
Food
actually
Bite,
think I saw it.
yeah, the very first version was like all
Oh, I saw
green.
the second version.
It was
Yep.
like all green with black text, and it was just like ugh, like it was just nasty. And we just slapped it together like as quick as possible to get something out the door that we could wheel into a room and show people,
Mm.
and we could point at it, and they could use it and go, works, I guess. And
Yeah,
then the second version of it was we put a little bit of effort into making it look nice. It was still kind of garbage, like it looked like it came out of the 90s. And it functioned, like it did what it needed to do. It was a little glitchy here and there, but we would fix the glitches when they happened. But it was overall something that worked. And then the version 3 was like when we actually built out an API, we brought on a bunch of developers, we built out like a nice interface. It actually looked good. But up until that point, it just looked super janky, and people thought like it was a joke. And I'm like, no, it's not though, because people are buying it because they need it,
correct.
and that's what's important. And I remember one of my mentors, Chris, he said like your MVP that you go to, like your initial thing that you go to market with, needs to look so bad that you're ashamed of it as a founder, but you're making enough money that you don't worry too much about the shame.
I actually like that. I haven't heard that, but I actually like that because it shows honesty,
You're breaking up a bit there, Werner.
to customers. It shows you being honest. This is it. Sorry?
You're breaking up a bit there.
Say what, Matthew?
You're breaking up a bit there. Can you hear me?
Okay, sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think you're
Can
good
you hear
now.
me?
Yep.
Okay. I says what you just described, it shows honesty. So you're not trying to oversell something. It's a startup. It's an MVP. People understand that. People accept that. So for me, I understand it. I think it's very good advice. Um, Something that I didn't intend to ask, but I was thinking about it while you were talking about it. So strategic logic, financial language, ability to understand how you make money, etc., etc., etc. We all get that. Behavioral insight, product management, the ability to link tech with design with behavioral human behaviors. Where do you personally draw the line when it comes to ethical design? In other words,
Ooh.
because when it comes to that behavioral insight, it also opens up the Pandora box of manipulating behavior, not just encouraging or empowering behavior. And probably one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had about software development, and I use that term broadly, was somebody who's a very experienced game developer. And he once explained to me over a really good meal and a few beers, he explained to me how you develop a game and how this whole reward system and tokens kind of gets folks addicted to going to the next level.
Yep. I know what you're talking about. So
Of course you do.
for the people out there, games
So
used to be fun. Games used to be like super interesting to play, and due to poor lack of legal regulation over what is called gambling nowadays, a
yes,
lot of video games are just gambling. We just dress them up to look like video games. I say we,
Mhm.
I'm not part of that industry, but there's
No, I know you're not.
developers that dress video games up to look like video games when actually they're just gambling, and they're even marketed towards children. So just be careful of how long your kid spends on a tablet playing a video game. Just saying.
Yeah. So what you also is saying, and I know that, I mean, I know that about you, is that when it comes to product design and human insight and understanding, for you, it is always about solving a specific problem for the customer. It has never been to
Kind of.
encourage a certain behavior
Two things.
or manipulate a certain behavior.
Kind of. So there's two things. One, because like this is like a way of looking at it. If you want to continue to exist as a startup, you have to do two things. One, you have to, well, actually three things. One, you have to be able
Yep,
to identify the pain point and the problem and be able to articulate that to
of course.
the potential customer, the lead, in language that they use, not you use, in
Correct.
language that they use, and you
Yes,
have to say it to them before they say it to you. So if you can use the
exactly.
words inside their head, it demonstrates that you understand the problem. Maybe or maybe
That's
not, but
insight.
yeah. But like
Yeah, yeah.
like Food Bite had to get to the point where like we did this with bifurcations. We had to understand like this happened in a situation where I said people need food safety because it's the law and people care about doing the law thing and people want to do the right thing, so they're going to get a food safety program. So I went out and I started marketing food safety programs to people, and people said, "Hey, I don't get a food safety program. I need it." And I put it in front of them and they went, "Nah, I don't want that." Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And then I would go like next door and talk to somebody else, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. Sign me up." And I'm like, what is going on? And like, I didn't have a background in marketing or
It's time to translate the messages.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So I was like, I remember like sitting down with my team and I'm going like, am I like actually crazy? Like we can go to like one company that to us looks identical to another company, and one company says yes immediately, the other
Yes.
company says no immediately, and this repeats, and
Yes.
it's just like it's like a 60-40 split, and I'm like, I'm losing
Yes.
my marbles, guys. And then I started reading about in marketing how bifurcation works, where you sit there and say like, okay, we have this group and they split in different ways. There's just a hidden variable that you don't know yet, so you have to go in digging.
Yep.
This is your back in customer discovery mode. So then I went out
Yep.
and started like poking around trying to figure it out, and I think I found out was, do you sell to a large retail chain? Yes. Okay, cool. Then they go now to the one layer
That
deeper, and
is
that massively
exactly.
increases the chance that they're going to buy a food safety program because they have a retailer pushing it on them saying you have to
Yes.
do this. Not the government. It's well, not just the government. It's their customer, the retailer, saying you must do this in compliance with our distribution. So like to the founder, you have to be able to address what the problem is and say it in the language that your customer is using. Second, you have to be able to demonstrate that you can solve the problem. That's going to be in the
Mhm.
demo. That's going to be with you smiling and showing them your tech and being able to show them like this actually does the
Mhm.
thing. And then the third thing, which is the most important and almost kind of demutes the other two, is the third important thing is you have to be able to get them to the point where they use the tool and they get to what's called the first, I call it like the first milestone of success. So it's go and use the tool and do the thing you know that you bought it for, be able to demonstrate to yourself that you did the thing to show that this is meaningful and had an impact on what you're doing. So an example of
And the
what we
key
would
word
do.
is meaningful.
Yes.
Yes.
So like for us, it would be like we can make monitoring really easy for you. So then we would show them how they do a monitoring record. And then after they do that, where I help them do it, I say, here, now go ahead and take care of it yourself. And they just flip through and they do it themselves. Go, oh, that was really easy. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to get like a dozen of them a day split over your team. It's not going to be so bad, is it? And they go, yeah, this seems fine. So like that understanding of like, now they understand the value and they understand the tool and how to use it. And they get like they've hit the button where they've received some kind of like positive feedback. That's how you create the feedback loop where they're going to keep using your app.
That was a very good description.
Yeah. And I don't
And
know if that's
and
like unethical or like I'm just literally
no.
trying to show them how to get to the thing that they care about as fast as
Matthew, I can
possible.
show you unethical. That's not
Yeah.
unethical. Yeah. No, 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 no. That's not unethical. In fact, and I don't want to go into any depth talking about it today because that's another hour, 2 hours conversation. A lot of the issues with ethical design has a lot to do with social media platforms and that generates revenues through advertising.
Yep.
So yeah, and the same with games. So we're not going to get stuck there. So what we've basically said that for a first-time founder, it's not just simply going after investors or understanding a little bit just about investing or how that works. They need to do quite a bit of work before they start talking or before they start networking to find potential investors. Uh, so, to summarize it, we want to see some strategic logic. We want to see them bring a few pieces together in a way that shows us that there's some intent and some insight behind what they're building and designing. The second thing we want, and to do that, talk to other experienced founders and just, if you don't know what to ask those founders, tell the founders to ask or ask the founders to ask you some really challenging questions and even some confrontational questions to get your mindset and your thinking right. The second thing is we want them to really understand not just some basic financial terminologies, but we specifically we want to see that they understand relationship
Ha.
between numbers, and how these components generate returns and value. So cost of acquisition and customer lifetime value. And then, when it comes to product development, you want to see a combination of somebody that can code, understand insight, and design. Did I miss anything? That was
Um,
a lot already, but
that
that's
was a
exactly
lot.
the kind of commitment we want to see, isn't it?
Yeah, like when I think about like boiling this down, and I think we're on the same track. Like when I boil it down, the key things I want to see with early founders and like the founders that I mentor, I kind of bully and push around to make sure that they're not just like being obnoxious and wasting their own
But
time.
but
But
that's our job.
yeah, yeah. So, the key thing I want to be able to see is like how are they building opportunity for themselves. So like that could be in
Hmm.
the form of like do you go and find leads? Do you go and find organizations that generate leads for you? Do you do
Absolutely.
social media? Like there's different ways you can solve this problem, but you have to do the fundamental problem, which is top of funnel. So how do you go and build those opportunities? It could be like somebody that needs the same problem fixed every single day. Boom! I only need to find a handful of customers, and I get a lot of test cases that I can get out
Sure.
of this. So that's one thing. The second thing that I want to see is that they're going out and they're saying like I am confronting the problem, I am solving it, I am learning, I'm getting data in,
Oh,
I'm
yes.
starting to like figure out what I am, like what is my identity, where do I sit in this
Correct.
ecosystem, where does everybody else
Yes.
sit. So
Hmm.
that's a key point. The other key point that I want to see is that I want to see the founder be able to say, I, and I've talked about this before, like you have this duality of problem for a founder, which is I am building opportunity so that I have an attempt to solve the problem and I have the
Yep.
capacity to solve the problem.
It's a juggling act.
And
Absolutely.
I want to see a founder be able to sit there and juggle these two things. Because if I see a founder just spending all their time on building opportunity, and it's like, yeah, I got like 200 leads in my pipe drive, and I go, well, this is cool. Like, how many paid customers do you have that have like gone through your funnel that have like, like I have
Mm.
bought a subscription? I don't have any. Okay, cool. Like, you need to do more of the other thing then. Versus I have founders like they had one customer once and now they just spend all of their time building this solution that not even the
Yes.
original customer wants, is because they've convinced themselves this is the ultimate final solution and they're trying to build 100 gizmos and widgets and gadgets on the side of this thing. And I go like, maybe just put it on LinkedIn and see if people care. Maybe make a YouTube video, see if people care. Maybe, like
Yes.
go to like a local startup hub and see if people care.
Matthew, that is exactly what I would want to see, and I don't see often.
And then if
Same for you.
to that, if the founders are not doing those three things, then I start poking around. I was like, hey, like,
Yes.
What do you like? How do you like one of the questions I ask is like, what does your calendar look like? How do you like figure out what you need to do every day? How do you set objectives for yourselves? How do you challenge yourself? How do you learn? Like, and if the founder's sitting there saying like, oh, I don't need to learn anything. I got like a master's in comps. I got like an MBA. What do I need to learn? Oh, cool. Like then I just again like unplug and I like, hey, good luck to you, buddy. Let me know if there's a later period of time I can help, but I don't think I got anything for you right now.
Yeah. Look, I just want to conclude that as well by with one founder that he was so enamored with his own idea, smart guy, super smart. And he wasn't too open to listen to reason. Uh, Let me just keep it simple. So eventually, after the second call or so, I said to him, look, this is what I think you need, and you need a letter of intent because you don't have any of that. I haven't heard from him for 4 or 5 weeks because he can't get a letter of intent.
Yeah.
So it's up to him now. Does he pivot? Does he learn from it? What does he do from it? But again, Matthew, it's instead of talking to me about I need investors, first get that kind of basic stuff in place. Just what you've explained. We just want to see a little bit more than just another idea
Yep.
and another founder. Sorry.
Yep. But then to this, like, if let's say if you have a startup and they've done all of those check marks, like let's just say they're
Sure.
doing the three things that I suggested: being able to build
Yes.
opportunity, being able to
Yes.
identify and solve problems and get learnings from
Yep.
them, and then be able to
Yep.
understand the duality of problem of capacity
Sure.
versus opportunity. Let's say if you have a start, like it's not just a founder, like that you have like the group of founders come forward to you and say like, I'm ready for venture capital, or like,
Hmm.
do you think that they're ready for venture capital, for angel? If they came to you and asked for VC, would you direct them to angels? Would you just say bugger off? Like what in your mind, what is a good answer for a team that comes forward to you like that?
So for me, that is okay. So that for me is, and I don't want to call it a follow-on conversation, but it's a follow-on step. Um, you have a network, I have a network, of people, VCs, angels, etc., etc. If we don't have, we know enough people that can find folks. Um, First thing first that I want to see before I will really get serious about advising them on what you've asked. What's the best way of doing this? What's the best way of doing? Who can I talk to? What kind of investment instrument or tool should I look at? Before I even get to that level, um, I just want to see a lot more, and this is what you and I spoke about this whole afternoon. I just want to see that. Now, based on that, and based on the founder, based on the idea, based on the industry, based on the founders, based on the founding team, founder, co-founder, or people that works with them, uh, based on a few macro issues as well. All of that will influence my advice or where I steer them towards in terms of what is the next step in terms of financing or investing. It's not a simple answer of speak to this person or speak to that person, and you've got a great idea and go for it. It's not that simple. Um, I would also like to see somebody that I have confidence in that can hold their own in such a conversation.
Debate is like, and there is
If they can't,
performance to the debate
I'm
as
not,
well.
yes, sorry.
It's not just like when I went and talked to VCs and when I talked to angels, it's not just like I'm sitting there debating them. There is some
No, it's
rhetorical
not.
theater that is also improvised.
Yeah, look, okay, so I've got two takes on that. So it's absolutely part of a job
Yeah.
of a founder to have a sense of theater,
Mhm.
and it's absolutely part of a founder's job to be able to tell a story.
Guilty.
100%. It's actually a skill. The problem is that what founders are told and taught about storytelling is very different from what storytelling actually is when you sit in front of an investor or a potential investor.
Mhm.
It's not the same. Uh, uh, you know, so that's the first thing for me. The second thing for me is yes, they want to see that because guess what? The more effective you are at selling your idea, not just to them, that also gives them the confidence that this guy can sell the idea to other potential investors or other potential parties, or he's got the ability to sell, which kind of sounds very old fashioned, but that's what it actually is. You need to show them that. I've sat in meetings where I was listening to the founders selling something, and I'm thinking like, I hope they don't ask too many questions about what's being told, because some of the answers is going to be a bit of a weave. Let me put it that way.
Mhm.
But you got to be able to do that. I think, though, not I think, I know, and that's what I would like to see as well, because I think a lot of founders, especially first-time founders, students, they've been sold on the theater and on the pitch uh, too much. I've been to sessions here where they need to pitch an idea in 4 minutes. Fantastic. Okay. You need to do that. But unless you're able to answer the first curveball, and you're going to get curveballs, you're going to get some pretty probing questions. Unless you're able to do that as well, you dead in the water. And if they like you, they might come back to you. If they like the theater, they might congratulate you on that, but they ain't going to invest. So, yes, I watched you in certain sessions, and I told you this is you. I know you as a person, but I also know you as a founder, and they're two different people.
Hmm.
So, as a founder, you wear your cloak, your theater cloak,
My top
and
hat, yes.
yes, and your body language changes. Your language changes. The words that you use change.
Of course.
Because what you're doing is you conveying that you are familiar with the industry. You know what is expected from the kind of language that they want to hear. But then you're also able to back it up with some intelligent answers or honest answers. I don't know yet, but this is how I'm finding out. Or I've learned this and I'm not quite sure what to do with it yet. But those are the kind of things that investors would like to see. Not, here's my pitch deck, it's a Canva template, shoot me.
Oh my God.
Uh, yes, yes, just shoot me. That's what it is. And oh, I've got my TAM and my SAM and whatever else. It's just like, and my addressable market is $1 billion.
You
Yeah, right,
have to
my
say
friend.
$1 billion because they want you to use the B word. Oh, well,
Yeah,
nothing's worse
well,
than
but
like going to like an incubator and they're doing like their 200th session with their startups and they're like, this is the pitch template deck that you're going to be using in all of your pitches. It has 11 slides. We're going to begin with the second slide. The second slide is the problem, where you address the problem of the market. And it's
yes,
like, the way like I articulate this to people now is like, if you're doing like an angel round, you're probably going to meet like at least 100 angels before you meet like a group of angels that are willing to put money on the table and you like them. Because like I've had
yeah,
angels put money on the
yeah.
table and they're like, I want to invest in food bite, and they put their terms for it and I go, what the
Well, yes,
and I'm just like, no, no, no.
and I
um
think your number of 100 is pretty spot on because I've always heard a number of 70 plus.
yeah, yeah, like,
So yeah,
so like you're, and I, there's founders looking at me saying like, I don't understand, that's a lot of time. And I'm like, it's speed dating. Like I went to Toronto speed dates where I was
it
speed
is speed
dating.
dating.
It
Yeah,
is speed dating with old men that have money and they're trying to find young men or young women that are trying to solve problems, and they see themselves in the founder going, you're a cool person. I see, like, you're really interesting. You're working on a cool problem. So I want to help you out. And like, that's the angel group you're going to be looking for. They have sessions like that in Toronto where they just like a machine gun. Like it was just like these two, like it was basically, they just had us rotating around like an inner and outer circle, round robin, so we could meet everybody. And yeah, it was kind of cool. You meet a lot of weirdos, a lot of interesting people, a lot of different perspectives. And like I say, you're just trying to find people as fast as possible. And when you're doing it with VCs, they're going to be more formal meetings for sure. And you're going to get into numbers. You're
yes,
get
it will
into term
be.
sheets.
Yeah.
You're going to get into all kinds of cool stuff.
And legal fees.
But at the same time, it's you're going to just be doing the same thing. You're going to be meeting a lot of people.
You know what? We should actually print T-shirts that for any first-time founder, date or marry a lawyer. It'll save you a fortune.
Yeah.
Either date or marry one.
Oh, God.
Seriously. Sorry, Matthew, did I bring up some PTSD there?
Well, it's just like you get your first term sheet and you're like, oh boy, like this sounds fun. And then you have to like send it to your lawyer, and then your lawyer's reviewing it and you're like, oh, this will take like an hour. And they're like, have you read it? Like it's like 80 pages.
Yep. And they read slow.
Yeah, they read slow, and there's going to be terms and conditions where they're like, did they express this to you? Did they specifically express this time of verbiage to you? And I'm like, no, I don't remember hearing that in the conversation. Okay, so then your lawyer goes and reaches their lawyer, and then they have
Yeah. On a lighter note and on a closing note.
I like safes. Safes are great. They're a contract. Sign
it. And we should actually talk about that. What a safe note is, because there's different safe notes, how it works, what the benefit of it. We should actually we should talk about that. Yeah, because I absolutely think it's something that founders should know that they can actually ask for or look for. You know, it's not just about getting your first investor on board. Tell me about vibe coding. Come on, man. I started reading about it. Is it the last few days or the last few weeks? I don't even know, but it seems to be something that kind of, okay, in my world, it came out of nowhere. I've got no idea where it comes from.
I'll start with a story. The story.
Okay, you do that.
Yeah. The story is that me and my head of marketing was at a incubator. If you're listening, Jesse, you know what incubator this is. And we were over there, and there were a herd. I use this term very specifically, a herd of engineers, and they were all wearing.
I get you, and I feel you.
They're like wearing like really strange clothes, and they were sitting around and they were sitting around eating lunch, and we were observing them, and one of them, their lunch was a block of cheese. Like it was just like a solid like block of Gouda, and he was like pulling it out, eating it like an apple. And then he like looks at the other engineer. And he's like, Gouda is the greatest cheese. It has the most fortified flavor. And like my marketing guy looks at me and he's like, what the fuck is happening? What are these people? Are they humans?
Exactly.
Yeah. So vibe coding is the concept that as much as computer scientists like to think that we're robots and tell everybody that we're robots, we're actually still normal human beings. Yeah, we're just more angsty. We're more sweaty, more angry, I guess. But we're still human beings. So like the whole point of like people who talk about like vibe coding and like aura farming and stuff like that, this kind of concept is like we're just trying to enhance the situation that we're in. Like instead of just sitting there and like I've been in rooms where like one of my mentors, he showed me the lab as he called it, and I was like, oh, like I was expecting like an actual like engineering lab, and I was like, oh, the guy's like a pure SaaS company. I don't think they would have a purpose for a lab though. He opens the door, it's like a completely pitch black room, and all you see is the reflection off of like a handful of glasses from like coders like in front of their laptops, like just doing
this. It's freaking dystopian, man.
Yeah. and they're like completely silent with like headsets on, listening to some
Of
form
course,
of
they have
music,
the
and
headsets
yeah,
on.
they're not
Yes,
even looking up at him. Like they're all just sitting,
yes,
and all you're hearing is just like click, 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 click,
yes.
click, and they're yeah. So like vibe coding is trying to go against that paradigm and try to make us be human beings again. Yeah, just like putting on some nice
Okay,
music, putting on
so
some nice lighting.
so Japanese flute, Zen
Yeah,
music,
yeah, all
whatever,
kinds of stuff. Fucking scented candles, man. Like anything that can like make it more of a positive environment.
Come on. I dare you. On one of our next podcasts, you have a candle. Come on, Matthew.
Yeah, just like
Well, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. You described it very well. Matthew, that was again very, very interesting. And you and I can continue for much longer, but got to call it a day.
all right. Thank you so much, Werner. It was good talking with you. And if you like
It
the kind of
always
stuff
is.
that we talk about, make sure to click that subscribe button down below and leave us a comment
Yep. Or if you disagree or have any questions, anytime,
anytime.
feel
Until
free.
next
Yep.
time, see you next video. Bye bye.
Cheers.